Lena put her son on the step and then got on the bus herself. It was lucky that the window seat was free. Alejandro will look out the window all the way, won't bother his mom. The young woman sat down on the seat, putting her son on her lap. She should be stuck on her smartphone too. But the son is very restless, you need to hold him tightly with your hands, otherwise he will fall off. So her hands will be busy. Lena also began to look out the window, like her son. The boy, who had been silent until he was a year and a half old, was now making up for lost time. With pleasure commenting in his 4 years everything that was happening around him. Well, not to listen to this stream of consciousness. And Lena plunged into herself, automatically seeing off with a glance, driving outside the car window. The life of a young woman was the most ordinary, which cannot be called happy or unhappy. A family, not the most stressful work, a dream to fly to Milan and an adored son. Lena's relationship with her husband Diego is perfectly normal. No, they fight. Fight, of course, then violently reconcile. They're not even thinking about divorce. Why would they divorce? They live normally. Without special conflicts and dramas. They've even developed some nice traditions. For example, now Lena takes her son to her husband's mother, because they usually spend weekends together with her husband. It's a tradition that little Alejandro takes turns being picked up. Either Lena's parents or the husband's mother. And no one is not tired of the restless child. And the young couple gets a chance to rest, do their own things, and just sleep. It's Friday evening, so Lena goes on the bus to her husband's mother. However, it's not a long ride. Only 3 stops. Grandmother opened instantly, as soon as her daughter-in-law's finger touched the doorbell. And right from the threshold spread her arms, welcoming her grandson into her arms. She kissed Lena on the cheek, asking if the child had eaten for a long time. And then, when she realized, she offered her tea. She had just bought custard cakes. The young woman checked the time on her wristwatch and nodded briefly. She had another 20 minutes. Why not come in? Enjoying her grandmother's specialty tea with thyme and lemon, she absent-mindedly munched on the cakes, not really listening to her husband's mother's chatter. What was the point? It's the same thing over and over again. Knees hurt, food prices were high, and so on. Alejandro ran around the kitchen like a madman, grabbing from the table a pack of juice, a candy bar, or a brownie. Then suddenly he stopped, stared at his grandmother and said loudly, "You're bad." Grandma stopped abruptly, and there was an oppressive silence. She looked at her daughter-in-law in confusion. Then she looked at her grandson. With difficulty she pulled herself together and said calmly, "Alejandro is a very bad word. You must not say it." But the little rascal only laughed. You must. You are bad," he shouted. The old woman's lips trembled. "You can't do that, Alejandro." "Who am I telling?" But the kid, seeing how angry the grandmother was, seemed to get a taste for it. He started running around the kitchen, pointing his finger at her. "You're bad. You're bad," he yelled like a madman. The grandmother clutched her head and turned to her husband's wife with a pleading look. "Lena. Calm him down. Lena." Only she pretended she couldn't. She pretended not to notice the conflict, scrolling through the news feed on her phone. It's not her problem. Her husband's mother is always trying to lecture her. Let her try to work it out with her grandson. The kid just brought home a new word from preschool. Yesterday he tried to call his mother the same thing. But she clearly and calmly explained to him that this word is very bad. And today he saw his grandmother's violent reaction and decided to make his grandmother very angry. Lena will not interfere. Her husband's mother is always meddling with her advice that she is bringing up her son wrong, cooking wrong, dressing wrong. So let her show the class of educational work. She was smiling wryly at her thoughts when a ringing slap rang out. Tearing her eyes away from the screen, the woman watched in amazement as Alejandro's head twitched and his eyes filled with tears. Unable to remember herself from anger, Lena was next to her in one leap and shoved her grandmother aside. "What the hell are you doing?" she yelled. "You're out of your mind." The older woman stepped back. "What am I wrong about?" she said with trembling lips. "After all, I'm lightly, not hurt him, just offended." And the child, feeling the protection, poured bitter tears, quickly turned into hysterics. And Lena jumped around, trying to calm him down. She hugged her son, kissing the top of his head. "I'm going to tell Diego everything, you know that." Screaming like a madwoman. "And I'll never give you a grandchild again. You're an animal, not a grandmother." Her husband's mother stared in horror at her son's wife. "Lena, what are you doing?" Dragging Alejandro by the hand to dress. The elderly woman fussily hurried after them, whispering words of apology, wanted to even hug her grandson. Only the enraged mother shoved her back against the wall with force. And Alejandro did not realize what was happening. Terror twisted his childish face. It made him cling to his mother like a drowning man to a straw. From this horror, however, he suddenly stopped whimpering and scurried between the two favorite women. "Mommy, what are you doing?" he whimpered quietly, hugging his mother. "Grandma, don't cry, Grandma." And Lena was suddenly awakened by his hot whisper. She drew her son's wiggly head to her and buried her face in the soft hair. God, to hit a child. That's out of bounds. Let us pass. Lena finally managed the zipper on Alejandro's jacket and pushed her husband's mother away without even looking in her direction. What a nightmare. That cunt just can't be allowed near the baby. Was bouncing around in her head. I can imagine what she does when no one's around. As she and her son drove home, Lena calmed down a bit. But when she saw her husband coming home from work, she burst into tears again. So from the doorstep sobbing and began to tell him everything. Helping herself with hysterical gesticulation, she also wrote Diego about the meanness and cruelty of his mother, about beating her son and bringing the baby to hysterics. And it was late at night. In the marital bed, the woman summed it up. "Take it any way you want. But Alejandro won't go to your mom's anymore. I had a hard time getting him to sleep. He's been under a lot of stress. What if it's a psychological trauma? What if it's a psychological trauma?" Diego listened to his wife and grew increasingly gloomy. He didn't expect this from his mother. Really, he should speak up. Hear her version of what had happened. Lena had embellished everything. Sleep still wouldn't come. And under the pretext of a walk in fresh air, the man went outside to call his mother. Only her number answered with long beeps. So Diego decided he would call in the morning. And in the morning, the husband's mother called back herself. After the violent incident, the woman had a heart attack. She's in the hospital. Diego brewed himself a cup of coffee and thought hard. Mom's version of the story was very different from Lena's. And the wife had made up the problem. In general, the wife spoils her son a lot. They complained about his uncontrollability at the daycare center. But Lena just shrugs her shoulders. He's just a little kid. The husband was already finishing breakfast when Lena came into the kitchen. She started making her son some porridge. And Diego decided to have a serious conversation. "Lena, why did you only tell me half of the story? Not a word about how Alejandro insulted Grandma and you pretended like nothing was going on. After all, Mom asked you for help, and instead you drove her crazy?" The woman grinned wryly and remained silent. The witch had complained to her husband, and she had lied a lot. Diego suddenly pounded his palm on the table. "Answer me now." Lena shuddered. "Do you believe Mommy again?" she shrieked. I told the truth. Alejandro was just playing around, he's a kid. And your mother, a grown woman, rushed to beat up her grandson. Anyway, get your stuff together, we're going to the amusement park. The little one needs some positive emotions. Diego's face is blotchy. What amusement rides? We're going to Mommy's. Beg for forgiveness or you'll get a divorce. He bellowed and pounded the table again. She's in the hospital because of you. Lena snorted angrily. In the hospital? That's great. Let her nerves heal. I see you've gone crazy, too. I have to go apologize for the crazy witch who beat up your son. I'm gonna file a report on her. A huge scandal broke out. And Lena, ignoring her husband's threats of divorce, ran with her son to his parents. They are sure to listen and support. Besides, Mom dislikes the husband's mother. And, as it turned out, not in vain. Once home, Lena finally breathed a sigh of relief. She and Alejandro would fit perfectly in her comanada. And then she would figure something out. Her mother was busy putting the table together. And Dad was busy with his grandson. It's nice to have a place to come back to. She quietly started complaining to her mom. I'm getting more and more agitated as the story goes on. She told me about the pig behavior of her husband's mother, and about her husband, who, as always, took her mother's side, and about her impending divorce. And the more Lena described, the more tense the mom's eyes became. Finally, she threw the towel away and asked point blank. What if it had been me? Lena raised her eyebrows in surprise. Mom, why are you comparing? You are you and she is her. You would never raise a hand to your grandson at all. Mother's eyes narrowed. What makes you think that? Because you really spoiled him beyond belief. And the mother began to complain that last weekend Alejandro had called his grandfather an old goat. No, he didn't get punched in the mouth for that, but he will. And he's not gonna forget that he can't be guilty of something he couldn't be guilty of. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes children understand better not verbal communication, but more simply, a slap. No matter what you say, but a small child should respect his elders and not to do something unknown, taking advantage of his impunity. Lena mom was difficult to get out of her mind, but the daughter always succeeded. She liked her daughter's husband. And she even prayed that one day he would not have an epiphany on what a snake gnat. She couldn't change her daughter's mind that there were too few good men. And they're taken when they're young. And it's a foolishness not to appreciate her own husband. And her husband's mother, no matter how she treats her, adores her grandson. Well, Marina Dmitrievna could not beat a child. She probably just slapped him on the lips. And Lena made a big deal out of it. Looking directly into her daughter's eyes, the woman mouthed. Alejandro got his ass handed to him. Or do you think it's okay to insult? I always and everywhere stand up for you. But you're wrong now. Apologize. Lena pouted. No way. The mother sighed doomedly. Suit yourself. Lose your husband? Stay away from us. You're an adult. You know everything yourself. You'll live on your own wits for the pennies you're sitting in your office. Lena's pouting. How could it be? Her mom, who has always been a rock for her, refuses to take her back home. Sounds like she's gone crazy too. Is madness contagious? Yes. Lena turned away to her calm nada, slamming the door loudly. Okay, she'll go back to her husband and even make up with her mother-in-law. But those two crazy old women will be begging her to see her grandson from now on. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next videos. Subscribe to our channel. All the best to you.